Welcome to Creating the Path, a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to create their own unique pathway to success and happiness. I'm your host, Heather Grace Hanson, and each week I'll be sharing tips and strategies to help you create the path to a life you love. Let's dive in. All right, let's talk about New Year's burnout and how to avoid it. So I don't know if this is a real term or if I just made it up, but I think we all know the phenomenon, right? It's a super common phenomenon where people will set New Year's resolutions and then by February, they've already given up on them, right? So I think what happens there is we set these resolutions or goals or all these big plans for the new year, and we get really excited to work on them, right? And then so we go really big in January, and then we're burned out on it by February. So we just give up, or we haven't seen the results quick enough that we expected. And so we lose the motivation. And so today I want to talk about how to avoid that, because we've already talked, in 2 episodes ago, we did the planning for the year, and then we talked about getting ourselves organized. And yeah, so how do we manage that excitement and making sure we don't go too big too fast? So I think exercise is kind of like the perfect example, right? Because so many people set a New Year's resolution to exercise more. So, and I've definitely done this in the past. So, I would get really excited and I would start exercising every day in January. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to exercise every day, or 5 days a week or whatever. But then it's too much, right? It's like I went too big. I can't go from no exercise to 5 days a week and think I'll just be able to maintain that easily, right? Of course, it makes sense that when you do that, you're going to burn out. Um, and then, I think especially in the exercise case, we all know that what the typical advice is to, um, in order to maintain it, which is to start small. Maybe you start exercising 1 day a week and then you keep that up for a little bit and then you move up to 2 days, uh, or you can do the opposite where if you are going to exercise every day, set a goal to do 5 or 10 minutes of exercise every day and then slowly build up. So you're doing more, that kind of a thing. It's basically, more like a slow build rather than starting big and then fizzling out quick, right? That's the basic idea. And I want to go back to something I said. I think it was in the episode when we talked about the planning. Yeah, because so I think what happens and what I realized is helpful for me is sort of like the fix for this is to going to that long view, like, um, or to that future view. So whatever goals that I've set for myself or resolution, whatever you call it, you know, is thinking about, okay, because I think for me, what trips me up is you know, after we do our planning, we're all excited to achieve our goals, right? It's like we've got the excitement and the motivation right now. And then sometimes, I think for me, it can almost feel demotivating, or maybe not demotivating isn't the right word, but it's really hard to start small when you've got that energy and that excitement, around your goals, at this time of year. Because you might actually, on any particular day, let's go back to the exercise example, you might really be excited to exercise. So you might, on that one particular day, you might want to do 30 minutes. So it feels counterintuitive because you might have the excitement and you might want to do more, but you almost have to intentionally hold yourself back, knowing that you are purposely trying to avoid this burnout, this New Year's burnout. So that's why I wanted to talk about this because, at least for me, I feel like a lot of people experience this. I don't know if you do, but yeah, it's that weird disconnect where you want to go strong because you have the energy and the excitement and the motivation right now. And so it would feel natural to kind of follow that, if you have the energy for it right now, but you almost have to, at this time, you almost have to kind of counteract that. Just being aware that, like, because we know it's going to happen, right? Like, I mean, it's happened to me so many years in the past that I've done this to myself. So it's like, even though I know I have the energy right now, I know that if I do too much, like, I am going to burn myself out on it or just lose the motivation. So I have to kind of purposely go slower. And what helps me to go slower is by going into that future view, going into the future of, like, okay, looking at, okay, how am I going to feel at the end of 2022? So let's go back to the exercise example, just since we're on that and it's an easy one. So let's say I decide to do a slow build in the sense that I'm going to start out doing 1 day of exercise, let's just say for 20 minutes. So I'll exercise for 20 minutes once a week for the first 2 months of the year, like let's say January and February. So for a month or two, I'm only going to exercise one day a week for 20 minutes. And then once that becomes a habit, for the next 2 months, March and April, I'll exercise for 20 minutes for 2 days a week and keep building up that way. So then 2 months after that, May and June, I think that would be, then I'll move it up to 3 days a week. So it's like a slow build. So it might not feel super exciting at the beginning because you're only doing it once a week. But if I think of this going out into the future, thinking like, okay, how am I going to feel at the end of 2022 if I can say that I successfully exercised once a week for the first 2 months of the year, and then for the next 2 months, I exercised 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week by the next 2 months. And then by the end of the year, I could build up a habit of exercising for 20 minutes a day, 3 to 5 times a week, let's say. Easily, if like you could easily build that into a habit by doing it slowly over time. And even if you're doing the other approach to building up slowly, where maybe you're exercising every day or starting out 5 days a week, but you're only doing like 5 minutes or so, and then adding time as you go, doing that slow build. But think how amazing it's going to feel at the end of the year when you can say that this is now a habit and that you've done it consistently throughout the year. So that's why I really love constantly reminding myself of the future view or the long view when I'm starting out slow on things and it doesn't feel motivating or it feels like I'm barely doing anything at all. But when I look at it in the future and can see how that will feel to have done these small actions consistently over the course of the whole year, then all of a sudden it looks like much more of an accomplishment than it feels in the beginning when I'm only doing a little bit of work on it, if that makes sense. So I really think that's a really helpful mindset shift in helping to stay motivated to towards working towards our goals without going too big too fast and then just burning ourselves out and kind of giving up on the whole thing. So I hope that's helpful. I don't know if that's something, it's just the way that my brain works. So I just want to offer that to you if this is something that you experience as well. And hopefully it'll be helpful for you too. So let me know what you think. Send me a DM on Instagram. I always love to hear from you. And I will talk to you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Creating the Path as much as I did. You can find the show notes for this and every episode at heathergracehanson.com/podcast. But before you go, make sure to hit the subscribe button. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Until then, have a fabulous week.